June 1944. The operation that would become the greatest military deception of World War II had just begun, and Hitler had no idea. Adolf Hitler receives reports of an army camped in southeastern England. Immediately, forces spring into action for combat. But while officers in Berlin pull their strategies, something impossible is happening. Half of those tanks are made of inflatable rubber. The troops are actors, and Patton is commanding the greatest military deception in history, the Ghost Army. How were Hitler and the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus in Europe fooled in this manner? Who was really controlling every piece of information reaching Berlin? And why did the Führer never doubt the Ghost Army? Welcome to Deep History. Tell us where you're watching from. I'd really like to know. The deception began months before the first Allied soldier set foot on French soil. In January 1944, Allied command faced a strategic problem that would determine the outcome of the entire European theatre. The invasion of France was inevitable. Germany knew it. The question was not if, but where and when. Every piece of intelligence, every troop movement, every radio transmission would be scrutinized by German analysts trained to detect patterns and predict Allied intentions. The stakes could not be higher. If Germany concentrated its forces at the actual landing site, the invasion could fail before it began. Thousands of lives depended on a single strategic premise: make Hitler believe the Allies would strike where they would not. The plan received a codename that reflected its ambition: Operation Fortitude. It was divided into two components. Fortitude North suggested an invasion of Norway. Fortitude South, the more critical element, pointed toward Calais as the main invasion target. Calais made perfect military sense. The distance across the English Channel was shortest there, barely 20 miles. It offered the most direct route to Germany's industrial heartland. Ports could be captured quickly. Supply lines would be shorter. Any competent military strategist examining the map would reach the same conclusion. Allied command understood this, so did German intelligence. The challenge was not to suggest Calais as a target. The challenge was to make it so convincing that Hitler would stake everything on it. Enter the 1st United States Army Group, known as FUSAG. On paper, it was a massive invasion force, 11 divisions, over 150,000 men, hundreds of tanks, artillery units, and support vehicles. Its commander was General George S. Patton, the most aggressive and feared American commander in the European theatre. German intelligence had tracked Patton throughout the North Africa and Sicily campaigns. They respected his tactical brilliance. They feared his audacity. If Patton was assembling an army in southeastern England, across from Calais, the conclusion was obvious: he would lead the main invasion. But FUSAG existed only in the minds of German intelligence officers. The tanks were inflatable rubber, positioned carefully in fields where German reconnaissance aircraft could photograph them. The artillery pieces were wooden mock-ups painted to appear real from the air. The barracks were empty. The soldiers were a fraction of the reported number, moving between camps to create the illusion of massive troop presence. Radio operators transmitted thousands of messages daily, mimicking the communication patterns of a genuine army preparing for combat. Truck drivers circulated through the same roads repeatedly, creating tire tracks and dust clouds visible from above. Every detail was calculated. Every element served a deception. The operation required more than props and radio signals. It needed credibility at a human intelligence level. German spies in Britain had to report what they saw. But British counterintelligence had achieved something remarkable by 1944. Every German agent operating in Britain was either captured, turned, or controlled. The double-cross system, as it became known, meant that every intelligence report reaching Berlin came through channels monitored and manipulated by British handlers. Agents reported exactly what Allied command wanted Germany to know. They described tank formations near Dover. They sketched maps of FUSAG positions. They transmitted details of Patton's movements and headquarters locations. Each report reinforced the narrative. Each piece of false intelligence fit perfectly with German expectations. Aerial reconnaissance supported the deception. German Luftwaffe pilots flew dangerous missions over England, risking anti-aircraft fire and fighter interception to photograph Allied positions. They returned with images that confirmed the intelligence reports. Tanks in fields, troops in barracks, supply depots near Dover. The photographs were genuine. What they showed was not. Allied planners understood that seeing is believing. They provided exactly what German photo analysts expected to see. The rubber tanks cast shadows. The wooden artillery pieces looked authentic from altitude. The carefully managed details created a reality that existed only on film and in reports. But this was not the most critical element of the deception. Not yet. Hitler's strategic thinking played directly into Allied hands. He believed the Allies would choose the shortest route across the Channel. He believed Patton, as the most capable Allied commander, would lead the main assault. He believed the invasion force gathering in southeastern England represented the primary threat. Every assumption made tactical sense. Every conclusion followed logically from the available intelligence. German High Command positioned its strongest divisions accordingly. The 15th Army, Germany's largest force in France, remained concentrated around Calais. Panzer divisions stayed in reserve, ready to counterattack. When Patton's forces came ashore, beach defenses were reinforced. Artillery positions were adjusted, minefields were expanded. Every preparation focused on the Pas-de-Calais region. The real invasion force assembled 200 miles west, near Portsmouth and Southampton. The actual target was Normandy, a less obvious choice with longer beaches and more complex terrain. Allied planners accepted the tactical disadvantages because they understood something more valuable: surprise. If Germany expected Calais and prepared for Calais, then Normandy offered the possibility of establishing a foothold before German reinforcements could respond. The entire strategy depended on maintaining the deception just until the invasion began, but 4 days or even weeks afterward, Hitler had to believe that Normandy was a diversion, that the real invasion would still come at Calais, that Patton's Ghost Army would eventually cross the Channel and strike where Germany expected. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed on 5 beaches in Normandy. The initial assault involved over 150,000 troops, thousands of ships, and air support on an unprecedented scale. German defenders fought with desperate determination. The beaches became killing zones. Casualties mounted rapidly. But the landings succeeded in establishing positions that could be reinforced and expanded. Within hours, Allied command knew the most dangerous phase had passed. Troops were ashore, supplies were flowing, the invasion had achieved its first critical objective. In Berlin, however, Hitler remained convinced that Normandy was not the main event. Intelligence reports continued to describe Fusag preparing for deployment. Patton remained in southeastern England. Radio traffic from his headquarters continued at high volume. Reconnaissance photos showed the invasion force still in position near Dover. The logic seemed clear. Normandy was a diversion designed to draw German forces away from Calais, where the real invasion would follow. Hitler ordered the 15th Army to hold its positions. Panzer divisions that could have reinforced Normandy remained near Calais. Days passed. Allied forces expanded their Normandy beachhead. German commanders in France requested reinforcements. Hitler, he was waiting for Patton. What came next would change everything. By mid-June, Allied forces had linked the 5 invasion beaches into a continuous front. They pushed inland, capturing strategic towns and road junctions. German resistance remained fierce, but the momentum favored the Allies. Every day, the Normandy front grew stronger. Every day the opportunity to drive the invasion back into the sea diminished. German field commanders recognized the reality. They requested permission to move forces from Calais to Normandy. Hitler denied the requests. The deception held. The Ghost Army kept German divisions frozen in place, waiting for an invasion that would never come. The psychological dimension of the operation proved as important as the physical deception. Hitler's belief in his own strategic judgment made him vulnerable to confirmation bias. Every piece of intelligence that supported his Calais theory was accepted. Every report that contradicted it was dismissed or explained away. When agents reported reduced activity around Dover, handlers explained it as operational security before the invasion. When reconnaissance showed some equipment being moved, it was described as repositioning before embarkation. The narrative remained consistent. Allied command understood that the most effective deception confirms what the target already believes. They did not try to convince Hitler of something new. They reinforced what he already thought. The deception extended beyond D-Day by design. Operation Fortitude South continued 4 weeks after the Normandy landings. Radio traffic from Fusag persisted. Patton remained visible in southeastern England. False intelligence reports described final preparations for the Calais invasion. The goal was to keep German forces divided as long as possible, preventing a concentrated counteroffensive in Normandy. Every day that panzer divisions waited near Calais was another day Allied forces could dig in and expand their position. The strategic value of the Ghost Army increased with every hour Germany remained deceived. The operational details required constant maintenance. Radio operators transmitted thousands of messages following realistic patterns of military communication. Logistics personnel maintained the illusion of supply operations supporting a massive force. Engineers adjusted the positioning of dummy equipment to reflect realistic deployment patterns. Intelligence teams monitored German reactions through intercepted communications, adjusting the deception when necessary. The operation demanded coordination across multiple military branches and intelligence services. One inconsistency, one implausible detail, could unravel months of preparation. By late June, the deception began to show strain. German intelligence started questioning the delay of the Calais invasion. Field commanders in Normandy became more insistent that the battle there represented the actual Allied main effort. Hitler's confidence wavered, but he did not completely abandon the Calais theory. Some panzer divisions were finally released to reinforce Normandy, but the movement came too late. Allied forces had established positions too strong to dislodge. The window for a successful German counteroffensive had closed. The Ghost Army had accomplished its mission. The human cost of the deception can be measured in lives saved. Every German division held near Calais was one fewer division fighting in Normandy. Every panzer unit waiting for Patton was one that could not attack Allied positions during the vulnerable initial days. Military historians estimate that Operation Fortitude South delayed German reinforcement of Normandy by weeks, possibly longer. Those weeks allowed Allied forces to establish the logistics infrastructure necessary to support the campaign into France. The invasion could have failed. Instead, it succeeded, largely because Hitler believed in an army that never existed. The sophistication of the operation reflected broader Allied advantages in intelligence and deception. The double-cross system provided control over German perception. Ultra-intercepts of German communications revealed how the deception was being received and what adjustments were needed. The coordination between British and American intelligence services created a seamless flow of false information through multiple channels. No single element would have succeeded alone. The combination proved overwhelming. Patton himself eventually deployed to France in late July, taking command of the Third Army. His actual combat performance matched his reputation. German intelligence finally understood they had been deceived, but understanding came too late. The damage was done. Germany's strategic position in France was already collapsing. The Ghost Army had accomplished something remarkable. It had convinced the enemy to defeat themselves by making decisions based on false information. The operation remained classified for decades after the war. Documents were sealed, participants were sworn to secrecy. The full extent of the deception only became public gradually, as archives were declassified and veterans were permitted to speak. Even then, some details remained obscure. The psychological warfare techniques developed during Operation Fortitude influenced Cold War intelligence operations. The methods of creating believable deceptions through multiple channels became standard practice. The Ghost Army's legacy extended far beyond the beaches of Normandy. The fundamental lesson was simple but profound: intelligence is only as valuable as its accuracy. Germany possessed a sophisticated intelligence apparatus. They collected enormous amounts of information. They employed skilled analysts. They had experience and resources. But they were seeing what the Allies wanted them to see. Every source had been compromised. Every channel was controlled. The intelligence appeared credible because it confirmed expectations and came through trusted sources. The trap closed not with military force, but with information carefully crafted to guide the enemy towards self-defeating decisions. Hitler's belief in the Ghost Army represented a failure of critical assessment. He trusted his own judgment more than the evolving battlefield reality. He prioritized intelligence that confirmed his theories over evidence that contradicted them. He waited for an invasion that matched his expectations rather than responding to the invasion that was actually occurring. The consequences were catastrophic for Germany's position in Western Europe. By the time German command fully recognized the deception, Allied forces had broken out of Normandy and were advancing across France. Another silent page of the war finally comes to light. Continue through our archive of forgotten operations. Subscribe, leave your like, and share this video with 2 people you remembered while watching.